Welcome to Sacred Stories Podcast, a place to explore and discuss new and exciting books of consciousness. I am your host, Rev. Ariel Patricia, and speaking with authors that have shared their wisdom, stories, and a higher consciousness through their books is one of my favorite things to do. Today we are speaking with Leena Banerjee Brown, a Sukyo Mahikari practitioner and author of her book, True Light, Ordinary People on the Extraordinary Spiritual Path of Sukyo Mahikari. And True Light is the exciting premiere book of our publishing imprint, Light on Light Press, a press dedicated to interspirituality, the sacred ground upon which all religious and wisdom traditions intersect and share their deeper unity of experiences. In the book True Light, ordinary people experience the extraordinary when they commit to a life of authentic spiritual practice. Leena Banerjee Brown brings this message to life through the profound practices and principles of Sukyo Mahikari, which you're going to learn about when I bring Leena on, as she tells the beautiful stories of many who share the deep desire to elevate mind, embrace a life of spirit first, and contribute to the upliftment of the world by giving and receiving divine light. In the book, True Light, it invites readers into a circle of family, fellow practitioners, colleagues, and friends to witness the inner and outer transformation brought about through deep spiritual practice. His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, wrote the foreword for True Light, and in it he notes, "I hope that this book will be an inspiration to the many who make their way along their spiritual paths." So it is my absolute delight to welcome author Leena Banerjee Brown to Sacred Stories. Welcome, Leena.
Thank you, Ariel. So good to be with you.
Absolutely. I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited that you are the premier author with the first book of Light on Light Press, one of our imprints. It feels really right, really beautiful that a book like True Light is the premier book.
Thank you. It's all a wonder the way it has all come together. So really looking forward to sharing it with everyone.
So I gave just kind of an overview of the book True Light. Can you share a little bit more about what True Light is about?
The book is really about stories of spiritual experiences and about spiritual development. I think the wonderful thing is that it's about the stories of many people, not only my stories, but the stories of a small community of Sukyo Mahikari practitioners, True Light practitioners from a few parts of the world, US, Canada, and India specifically, who represent practitioners throughout the world who are seeking to awaken the spiritual depths of their own self, true self, and bring it alive in the world, in daily life, in all aspects of work, all aspects of living. And it's a range of stories on many different topics, from nature to family, to food. A big concern today in terms of the quality of the food, the way food is grown, the way we take care of the earth, our planet, the sustainability concerns, not only for our generation, but for the next generation and the generations to follow. So we have written quite a bit about food and how to grow food with combining divine light and a positive innermost attitude, or what we call sonin, a positive vibration from the depths of our being, close to our soul, and about health, the ramifications of health connected to food and education and such. So there's a range of topics that we cover, and we bring it alive through our personal experiences shared together.
I think that's one of the things that makes True Light so beautiful and unique, is because in addition to sharing personal stories of the practice of Sukyo Mahikari, it is the stories and the work, the greater work is around, as you mentioned, nature, health, our food, our education, our environment. And it just brings a depth of wisdom of not only our personal practice of light, but the practice, our spiritual practice, how it impacts and can uplift our greater world.
Very true. And the simplicity of the practice is also something wonderful, something to take note of, because sometimes when we talk about such big, profound, overarching things, it can be somewhat overwhelming. But the True Light practice is something that is a direct practice, a direct sacred practice that connects what is deep within us to what is far beyond us, and allows us to be instrumental in the upliftment of others and all things at the same time as uplifting ourselves. So it calls upon something utterly, deeply natural within us, which is an intrinsic, altruistic core that we all have, and an interconnectedness to each other and to all things that we all have. So every day I give light because I truly love to, and give light to the spiritual aspect of all things. The furniture, this computer before I sat down to speak with you, the environment. It's raining today here in Southern California. Appreciating that purification, natural purification of nature, adding to it the divine light, and with family members, with community members, exchanging light and purifying, elevating our souls every day. It's a great joy, and the wisdom that comes through it, the sense of interconnection, the upliftment, and the divine arrangements that come as a result of these elevations are truly wondrous and within the reach of ordinary people like us, and have the capacity there. It's for the purpose of uplifting the conditions that we are all facing today, and moving it in the trajectory of a much higher, peaceful, spiritually awake destiny. This has been talked about in the interspiritual movement, of which the Light on Light Press, which True Light has the privilege of being part of, and being the first book in. It's to share this consciousness of the commonality of all different paths and practices that are uniting to answer the challenges that we are facing today, to take present times and future generations in the direction of a better destiny.
Leena, share a little bit more, because this is all within the context not only of all of us as spiritual beings, but within the context of the greater Sukyo Mahikari practice or spiritual practice. Can you explain to our audience a little bit about Sukyo Mahikari?
Yes. Sukyo Mahikari, first of all, stands for the universal law. Sukyo is universal law, and Ma is truth, and Hikari is light. So Sukyo Mahikari is the practice of the universal laws of true light. It's also, in a practical day-to-day sense, it is the practice of giving and receiving divine energy, which comes from the highest, most sacred realm through practitioners to others. And so on one level, it is the exchanging of giving and receiving sacred energy. And it is also, at the same time, reflecting on our experiences that take place, and taking actions to elevate our consciousness in response. And these could be really simple things like realizing that, we have the tap going too long as we are washing dishes. We can use less water in the way in which we are doing our dishes every day, to much, much more profound things, which, so many examples come to mind, but that affect profoundly the lives of others, let me say in a nutshell. So there's that whole process of giving and receiving light, reflecting and taking actions that allow the elevation of consciousness to take place. And there's also the practice of universal principles such as gratitude. There's a fathomless depth to which we can continue to practice the deepening of gratitude, acceptance, humility. That is especially significant one, I believe, to be able to stand in another's shoes, especially when we face difficult circumstances. How much harmony and how powerful that can be in a truly positive sense if we can stand in another's shoes when we face a challenge, to be able to come up with a response that is good for the other as well as ourselves, good for all. These kinds of universal principles, as well as caring for the environment, saving the environment, reducing waste, improving cleanliness, and many such universal principles. And we radiate light to the spiritual aspect of all things at the same time as taking concrete, material, practical, positive actions on the physical plane.
Share your sacred story with us that led to the writing of True Light, please.
Thank you. This was about 2 decades ago that I first received True Light. And it happened, through my work. It happened as, you might imagine, unexpectedly. And when I received True Light for the first time, I think that the story is a story of connection. Story of connecting with, being allowed to connect with the pure, pristine energy of the sacred realms and of God. And also connecting with a very pure form of happiness and an elevation of mind, truly feeling that there is a deep living presence power within myself, that is me, and that is connected with the highest realms there are in this universe, feeling that kind of connection. So it is a story of connection. It's also a story of giving. Very, very quickly, I felt that to receive this connection means to be able to share it with others, and there's a great joy in doing that. And I feel it's very, very natural for us as human beings to open up to this joy, because it's within us. It's so much greater joy than the joy of seeking something for ourselves. It's a pure, high form of joy, which it comes to me every time I can give light, every time I can share a few words, as I'm doing with you now, and in the book, and the wonderful way that things come together. The working with all of you in this team. We didn't know one another till a few months ago, and we've worked so seamlessly with such deep and profound understanding and love. These kinds of experiences are part of my sacred story, have happened in this giving. And the other thing that I would say that's part of my sacred story is seeing on another plane, being allowed to see that there's sacred wisdom that we can access, that is at the source of all fields. And that is something that we are meant to access through all fields. My field is psychology, but at the source of all fields is sacred wisdom and knowledge that we are yet to tap into in our mainstream of society and in institutions. But this is our direction for a peaceful and sustainable future, to know our origins and to be allowed to tap into the sacred core and origin from which our endeavors arise.
Leena, I think this would be a great time if you could read an excerpt of True Light for us, please. Give another context to the way the book is written and how it's shared.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll come back to growing food and the practice of growing food with giving light and being aware of the sacredness of the land and the food and of nature. There's this small story. It's just one of those that I truly love in the book True Light, and I'll read to you. An extraordinary and very precious story shared by a Japanese tea farmer provides a contrasting experience to the factory farming approach. In the third year after shifting from conventional agriculture to yoko farming practices, the farmer went to the tea plantation one morning to find many of the tea trees had been uprooted and destroyed by wild boars in the middle of the night. He thought to himself, due to environmental destruction brought about by human activity, the boars have little to eat. That's why they came to the fields last night. While apologizing to all nature and its creatures, he gave true light to the fields. The next morning, when he went to the fields, he was shocked to see what lay before his eyes. During the night, the boars had returned to the fields and used their tusks and snouts to spread organic compost on all the raised beds in the entire plantation of 9,900 square meters. It would have taken his entire family 3 whole days to do this work. Moreover, none of the tea trees were harmed. Amazingly, in the 22 years since then, the boars have come every year to help spread compost in the family fields. From this profound experience, the tea farmer deeply realized the importance of having an attitude of coexisting and co-prospering with nature. Thank you so much.
Thank you for reading that, Leena. I think it really, brings to light, right? I guess pun intended, the real idea, the real practice of what you're speaking about. So we can speak about things, in theory, it's important to do this or to do that, but to hear the true story of someone in the practice of it is profound. And I think it really helps us see how we can walk differently in the world and the choices that we can make each day.
Yes. Thank you. Nature responds to that kind of purity and selflessness and that sense of interconnectedness. And these are things that are within us, within each and every one of us, and waiting to be awakened. It's so simple because it is natural. And I think that that's part of the power of our practice and of any true spiritual practice, being able to tap into these capacities that we have lying dormant within us.
What a wonderful world that will be.
Yes.
For all of us. So we've covered so much, and I know you've shared, the importance of so many things and your hope, but would you like to share a final hope or wish or request of the people listening and future readers of True Light?
Yes, thank you. My very much hope that young people will engage in spiritual development seriously, beyond all the wonderful, exciting things they're doing for the climate and for social justice and many things, that they will deeply realize the significance and power of reaching into their depths through true paths of spiritual practice, and that we can unite with them and support them and learn from them in this. I very often learn from my children, and it's a gift to be able to awaken together and look together toward the kind of future that would bring hope to all of us and our families, our homes, the foundations of our society, that we can come together to nurture each other spiritually and to grow together spiritually as strong, solid building blocks of a society that works well together.
Mm. Thank you, Leena. Thank you for joining us today on Sacred Stories podcast.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
And thank you to our listeners for listening to the Sacred Stories podcast. You've been listening to Leena Banerjee Brown, author of the new book, True Light, Ordinary People on the Extraordinary Spiritual Path of Sukyo Mahikari, which includes a foreword by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. I am your host, Rev. Ariel Patricia, and as always, I encourage you, until we meet again, to write your sacred story well.